Have you ever felt like somewhere along the way you became invisible? It's a common story I hear with people, especially women in midlife. Like suddenly the world just has decided that your best years are behind you. What if I told you that is so far from the truth? In fact, this stage of life and feeling invisible might actually be a doorway for something even more magnetic, not only creating your life in a new way, vibrant and exciting and wonderful, but in your love life. Today, we're diving into something so powerful because I have Kathryn Morea in the house. She restarted, rebuilded, recreated her life in her 60s. And when I tell you she's got a story to share with you about invisibility and changing it all, you're going to want to hear. Let's get started. Welcome aboard, Kathryn. So good to have you here.
Thank you, Junie. It's so nice to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Oh my God. I have not done a podcast for a while, and you came on my radar. We had a conversation, and I was like, okay, if you buckle up, we gotta have you, we gotta have you on the show because your story and your skill set of how you help other women in this stage of life is spot on, amazing, needs to be heard. So I'm just gonna dive in with you and ask you, why do you think so many women feel invisible? What have you experienced? And why have we like how did we get conditioned to be this way? Share what you got here, sister.
Well, it is true that our society really elevates and worships youth, right? I mean, that's not an untrue statement. Models, a lot of times they're starting in their teens. This is what we see in social media. There is a great emphasis on beauty being youthful. Um, and I think an interesting thing happens to us as women when we are younger and you're, let's say, a teenage girl and you start getting all this attention from men as you develop, you go through puberty and then, men are whistling at you on the street and approaching you and you're not really ready for that. And you start to push that off. And maybe as you become um, a little older, you get into your 20s or 30s, you get married, you have kids. If you're getting approached by strangers, inappropriate, you're going to push that off. And I think that for me, and probably a lot of other women, you develop sort of an invisibility cloak that you place on yourself.
Mm,
I learned early on not to smile, not to make eye contact, that making eye contact and smiling at men who were strangers would invite them into my personal space, would invite them to think they had an opening to ask me out, to approach
totally.
me. And that was, when you're a teenage girl, that's not appropriate. When you're a little older and maybe married, that's not appropriate. It's not respectful to your husband. I was married for 29 years and my husband was, traditional, and I learned like not to make eye contact, not to smile, not to be open with my gestures to men. And when I became single in my 50s, I didn't even know that I was doing that to myself. Now, of course, I didn't have kind of the attention that you have when you're a 19-year-old, you know, girl,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
don't quite have that, but it also isn't as black and white as it can seem. It does seem
Mm.
you're in your 40s and 50s, the men aren't like, you know, jumping.
It's different.
It's
It's
different.
so different. And then you get to your 50s after all those years of shutting it down, and from how I look at it is protecting. It's like if you smile or say hello to anybody that you don't necessarily want to invite in, and it's an open door, and then you go, oh my God. So we learn safety. We learn let's not go there. And then we get in our
Yes,
40s and 50s and
and then we
we have
want it.
that programming. And then you're like, am I alive? Are you people seeing me anymore? Let alone in your
But
60s. My goodness.
they're not maybe breaking down the door to you the way they were when you were 18 or 23 or what have you, but they are there and they are available. And then you have to relearn the skills to be open to them, the smiling, the eye contact, the posturing, and the mental idea that, hey, I'm going to let someone approach me. I'm going to be available to that. I didn't even realize how much I had that, resting bitch face.
Love that, the resting bitch face. I don't know the first time I heard that, but I was like, "Oh my god, I totally get that," you know? And again,
It, we
protective
need
on
that.
some level.
Yes, we don't want a bunch of strange men coming into our life, and as a female, we are aware that, there's rape, there's molestation, there's, sexual harassment, there's all these things, and we learn over the years, to have this distance and to have the resting bitch face. It's protective. And then it's not so necessary to be so off-putting to the opposite sex. We don't quite know how to take down that shield, right?
Right, and I wanna hop in here, and that's the challenge. Because if you're starting over and you want to have more connection and you would like to let somebody know that your shop is open and you're taking applications for new guys, we have an issue there. So firstly, we're older and the door is not being knocked on as much, just a reality, you know? Then there's our belief the door isn't gonna be knocked on as much, which is another huge thing because, oh, I'm
Yes,
older. Who's going to want me now? So that we're holding on to that belief. And then
that's
there's the protective stuff. Well, if I say hello or if I smile, and then the vulnerability around that. It's like, whoa, what a minefield.
yes, it's a lot to unpack. And, noticing and being aware of that is one of the first steps. And then, how to train yourself to flirt again, to be open. And then the
Mm.
other thing is your own mindset. Are you believing that your best years are in the rearview mirror? And I certainly did for a
Yeah,
number
I
of
want to
years.
hear your story. I want to hear your story because
Okay,
your story is so spectacular. Go. Go.
thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I was married the first time for about 5 years to my son's father. And then we split, and I had maybe 2 years of being single before I met the next man, that I was with for 29 years, and, many very happy years in there, but we ended up splitting when I was, I think, about 54, and I just thought it would be like I was when I was 24, that I would just decide in my mind I was available, and now there's apps, right? When I was married the first and second times, there were no apps. So learning all of this, how things work on the app and the guys who just say hey and the guys who ghost you and all of this and how, that whole roller coaster of getting ghosted. And oh my God, I was like completely unprepared, having been in a relationship for 29 years. And I was expecting that I was just going to find another man and put him right into the slot that my ex-husband was in. Like, he's going to be better looking, he's going to be richer, he's going to be more successful, he's going to be nicer to me, and he's just going to fit into this slot that I had this vacancy in my life. And I'm like, I'll be paired up again in no time and I'll have someone better.
Right. Right.
I was really surprised that that wasn't the case. I didn't experience that. And in fact, what people were telling me and what my own experience was telling me was that the men who were in their 50s were dating women in their 20s and 30s. And I was like, wait, do I have to go out with someone in their 70s and 80s now? Because if they're dating like 20 or 30 years younger, then that
Mm.
means I've got to date an 80-year-old. And I wasn't necessarily attracted
How
to
exciting. It's like, what do we have in common with an 80-year-old? It's such a different whole
yeah.
dynamic in so many
And I'm
ways.
not
Yeah.
saying you couldn't go that direction,
Yeah.
um, but that wasn't that appealing to me, and I was left with the friends and associates that I knew seeming to be dating down in age. So I met this one guy that, I was kinda like, my eyes were always open for, like, someone around my age who showed up in my circles who was single, and this guy was, in his mid-50s, successful guy. I wasn't necessarily physically attracted to him, but I'm like, okay, he's here in my periphery. And, maybe this is a hot one. He talked about having just been recently divorced, and I'm like, okay, this is a hot prospect.
Yeah, yeah, reel that one in.
Yeah. As I started getting to know him better and seeing him in more meetings and what have you, um, he brought his 29-year-old fiance, to a party one time, and I'm like, 29? Oh my God. I was so personally offended, and I don't know why in those times I took it so personal, but
Mm,
I thought that there was scarcity around this. I thought
yeah,
if the 59-year-old is dating a 29-year-old, who's left for me? I really thought
right.
that. Such a crazy
Who's
mindset.
left for me is a big deal, especially when you're starting over. There's the excitement and it's going to be easy, or at least you think there's going to be some traction, and that's like a big ouch when you start to see this.
I would
Yeah.
go home and cry, I would just be like,
Yeah.
"What's left for me?" And I would only look at men
Mm,
dating apps that I was on, I would only look at men that were, in their, maybe within 5 years of my age. So I was looking at men who were, in their mid-50s to mid-60s. And honestly, I wasn't attracted to them for the most part. It was really hard for me to
yeah,
find someone that just on a physical level, I was like, "Oh, yeah,
right.
he's for me." And yet I still felt like I was an attractive woman, and then I'm like, "Why do I have to, like, settle?" I mean, I can be friends with any of these guys, but why do I have to settle for someone I'm not physically attracted to? And I would look at my friends and I'm like, "How are you doing this?" And honestly, a lot of them were single. It's like, are we just, like,
Yeah.
to be single for the rest of our lives now? Like, our good years are over, and now we're gonna garden and knit, and that's it, right?
And play mahjong.
Yeah, like, it's cool. Girlfriends are cool, my cats are cool, I can be that cat
Yeah.
lady, sure, but is that really all behind me? Did I miss it? And I thought for years,
Mm.
probably 5 years, I thought, "Wow, I missed it." I spent my good years with this one man, and if I'd have broken up with him earlier, maybe I could have had some experiences with other attractive men, and now it's too late.
Yeah, and when you think that, and I know this is, what I hear from my clients and people that I talk to all the time, that I'll just accept my life the way it is. This is as good as it's going to get. I'm going to make the most of it with my friends and everything. But at the end of the day, there's still a part of them that still desires it, that hopes to have someone to share their life with. But they kind of give up. So the fact that you went 5 years, I want to give you some major kudos because you kept going. So what happened then?
I kinda did sort of put it on a shelf and went, it was funny. I was talking with my best friend. I spent Christmas with her and her family up in Canada. And her mother, I said to her mother at one point, I really want to get paired up again. And we were like drinking coffee in her kitchen. And I was saying, yeah, I mean, I want to grow old with someone. I'd like to have someone to take care of me as I get older. And she burst out laughing. I think she spilled her coffee. She laughed out loud. And I was like, what? And she goes, "That's like having kids in order to have them take care of you. Like, if that's what
Mm,
you want in a relationship, that's not a very good reason, like you'll
yeah,
never no
good
one's gonna."
friends. Good
And I was
friends
like,
and confronting, boy, wow.
I know, it just shook me. And, so I don't know if it's because she said that, but I literally spent the next 6 months pivoting, and, I kinda just focused more on myself, and that same best friend, she came to visit me, and I was living in Puerto Rico. I lived in Puerto Rico for 5 years. So she came to visit me in Puerto Rico, and I was lamenting the life I used to have. I was telling her, I used to go out for coffee with my husband, and we would sit there and drink our coffee and read the paper, and we would go to the gym together, and we would, and I had
Yeah,
this life, and, I gave up this life to pursue something better, and it's not better. And oh, poor pitiful me. She wrote me an email when she got back home, and she said, "Listen, you need to look around you at your life and what you created, and you need to do what makes you happy now. Stop waiting for it to get
yeah,
better. If going to the gym was something important to you, then go back to the gym. If drinking coffee in a cafe in the morning and reading the paper is something you enjoyed, go back to reading the paper. You don't have to wait for a
smart.
person or to move or anything to happen for those to happen now. And I was like,
Mm.
you know what? She's right. Literally started going back to the gym, and I started filming myself at the gym. I started posting my workouts on Instagram, and I used Instagram as my accountability partner. I didn't hire a trainer. I just started posting my workouts. And in my mind, posting my workouts on Instagram meant there was someone watching me on Instagram who knew if I didn't post a workout the next day that I was slacking, right? So I believed internally that someone cared and someone was watching, even though probably no one cares. But I told myself, hey, if you don't go to the gym and post this in your story, then there's someone out there who's going to know and call you out for not going to the gym. So I kept going.
Want to just like piggyback on the thing that your friend said, which is do the things that you love. Do the
Yeah.
things, get back out there and do these things. So you're posting on video, your blah blah blah. You're posting your workouts. You're sensing somebody's watching you. So bring us to the turnarounds of what changed for you in this piece of your story because it's so cool.
Yeah, so I started posting on Instagram, even though it was really embarrassing to be in the shape that I was in. I'd really let
Mm,
myself go. I'd put on a lot of weight. In my prior life, I'd competed in bikini, not bikini, but in figure, and so I had this history of having been in elite shape as an athlete, and now I'm 50 pounds overweight. I'm older. I'm feeling yucky about myself, my self-image, but nevertheless, I posted my workouts, and there started to be progress. I started to the body fat started to melt away slowly, and I started to have a little more confidence in my self-image. Then I got on hormones. So about 3 or 4 months after I started and I started losing weight, then I got on bioidentical hormones, and that changed everything for me. That really, I mean, I said to one of my friends, the grass got greener, the sky got bluer, my brain fog, my uh energy level, my muscular strength, like everything just improved so much. My quality of life it was
yeah,
nice.
across the board, mind, body, spirit, your actions are different, your body is changing, you're feeling better, your confidence is rising. So I'm loving all this, the body transformation, everything. So what happened with your love life as you're getting more confidence and like what changed for you?
Yeah, well, I did really put things on hold for about 6 months where I wasn't seeing anyone, and I think that really helped give me perspective. I wasn't chasing, I
Yeah.
wasn't trying, I wasn't even looking for anything. And then a man walked into my living room. They say you have to get out and, get out there and put yourself out there, and it was so funny because I didn't at all in that moment. All I did was host a meeting that I was having every Saturday for real estate. And this man came into my living room and, a young man, not someone I would have normally ever suspected of being someone that would date me.
All right, wait,
He
how young are we talking about?
34, 34
Okay,
years.
a little younger than you.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
quite a bit.
Play the music in the background. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, what happened?
Yeah, and he started pursuing me and, calling me, chatting me up, asking me out on dates, and I'm like, we went out to dinner and he said he was really attracted to me, and I was like, "Wait, how old are you?" "Do you know how old I am? Is that a Cougar thing?" He was like, "No, I'm just really attracted to you." It was so flattering and such a boost to my ego, and, we dated for a few months, and I was just like, "Wow, I can't believe that I'm going out with someone almost half my age." And then an interesting thing happened also. I started to see all of these movies and stories and Instagram posts. And, everywhere I turned, it seemed like there were these cougars and MILFs and older women, younger men. And it was funny because I was blind to that for at least 5 years. All I saw were older men and younger women. And then I started to see all of these older women, younger men relationships. And I'm like, where was this when I needed it? And I just had been blind to it. It was there all along, I suppose. But now I make a point of like, listing out and having this for my coaching to show women, like, look at all of these stories, look at all of these movies that have this, look at all of the people, Cher and Madonna who are living this life. It is not
Yeah.
one off. This is really possible if this is
And
something you
it's
just
not just for the rich and famous like Cher and Madonna. I think they're opening the door for us to even like think about that. Our culture is not used to this. It's taking, we have our beliefs around that, and we don't blink an eye when an older man is with a younger woman and they look like, it could be his daughter. But
right.
when it's an older woman and a younger man, we're not used to that at all, let alone us as being older oh, wow, it's flattering, but is this okay? Is this gonna work? Is he really into me? Okay,
Yeah.
so what happened?
Well, we dated for a couple months and that was great. And it really opened
Yeah,
my eyes to the fact that there was more possibility to date someone that was outside of my filter group. So instead of just
yeah,
being with, someone who was, 55 and up, later on when I got back on the apps, which was at least 6 months later, I did wait some time before doing that. I just opened it up and said, wow, we don't have to say that you have to be a certain age. Let's just, and also I think we're trained as women to look for the provider. Do you have the money? Do you have the ambition? Do you have, real estate and a portfolio and all these things? And I realized I had a lot of those things myself, and I didn't really need someone to fill every single bucket for me of every single thing that the perfect man should have. The fact is, I'm coming into a relationship with a lot of my own stuff, my own money, my own real estate, my own, so does someone really have to be all of that? Do they have to check every one of those boxes when what I really want?
love that. I love that you got to that place because so many women have that list, and it can really limit their options. And I'm not saying throw out the list. There are things that are important for us to have and desire and want for our life. That's like totally cool. It's just we are wired for certain things. We've been conditioned to have a strong, tall, big man, with assets to help us relax and be taken care of. And and to your point, it's like you were solid. You didn't need anybody. You have this big life. You're good. And I think we have to be really honest with what is it that we really want? Like now, like what is it, especially in the second half of life when we're in our 50s and 60s and beyond? It's like, what is the kind of person we want and potentially need on some level? And does it fit the wiring? Because so many women throw men out of the possibilities if they're not 6 feet or above or don't
Right.
have a certain portfolio, and they have so
There's
much
so
more
many.
value than just that.
Right, there's so many of those things that we do that with, whether it's the
Yeah,
height or the hair color or, he can't have kids or he has to have kids that are grown or he has to, be, within 5 mile radius of where I live. And, I mean, there's so many contingencies that we put on.
yeah.
It's great to have boundaries and it's great to have your idea of what is perfect so that you can go look for that. But I don't think you should let that stand in the way of someone who might come into your life who isn't every single one of those things. And if you keep waiting around for all of those things, do you prefer to wait around for all of those things and be alone? Or do you prefer to have some adventures along the way that might be very fulfilling for you by taking off some of those filters?
Absolutely. You're talking about mindset, you're talking about beliefs, you're talking about filters. How might you suggest somebody shift from that scarcity mentality to that abundance mentality? Like any pointers you'd like to offer them?
Yeah, there are a few pointers. Like there's in my coaching, I give a whole list of movies and books and series on Netflix, like Younger, where it's focused on an older woman, younger man. Um, so open that up as one of the filters that you might have. Just when you think about the numbers of like I live in Southern California where there's maybe 20 million people, so there's probably 10 million men. And of those, millions of them are single at any given time. So, there's there's options and opportunities. Now, one of the things that I did that helped me, which was really kind of funny and superficial in many ways is when I started posting on Instagram, I started getting hit up in my DMs with men, and many of them in other countries. Young, hot, beautiful men started messaging me, and I'm like, what? Um, so that was another thing in my transformation is finding these men who gave my ego a boost, even though there was never any real connection or never any real
Mm,
potential of a relationship, but they were good for one thing for me. They were good for building my self-esteem and my confidence back up
yeah.
years of feeling unwanted. So it was a very external, very superficial technique, but I would actually
Worked.
recommend.
And I get it, I mean, when we've been in marriages, and I don't know how yours was, but, by the time I got out of my marriage, I was really hungry for someone to really see me, someone to really wanna, give me that attention, give me that love, and any attention at that point was really wonderful. It was like I was starving and suddenly somebody was offering me an apple, and I'm just like, "Yes." And
Yes,
and,
like
you know,
Apple, I'll take
and
the french fries.
Right, right, anything, and I think that's, it's a cautionary tale, I think, because women, especially, in the second half of life that are starting over, can be very hungry, and we might go more quickly into relationships because, "Oh my gosh, there's a meal here," and I know that one of the things that you've shared is it's good to date multiple people, and not just dive right into one relationship so that you could actually get your feet wet, actually start to be fed, and actually come home to like who you are and what's most important for you, like that rebuilding of yourself.
I think that is critical, and I think whatever age you are as a woman, our default is to latch on to that one person,
Attachment. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so you date someone, you go out one time with a guy, you feel some chemistry. Maybe you don't feel a whole lot, but, he's here. He's he's Mr. Right Now. You're you're finding all the good in him. You're looking for the good. Okay, he's got a good job, or, his kids are grown, or I like the way he tells jokes, whatever. You go home, you're waiting for him to call you and make sure you got home safely, or to text you the next day and say he had a nice time. You're starting to build it up. And I don't know about you, but I've been in those positions where I've gone out with the guy one time and I'm already thinking what my last name would be like with his, like
it's a little
embarrassing.
embarrassing as women, but yeah, that is it's what we do. Is he the one? We get excited, we start to imagine a future with them,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah, I'm
just
already
met.
like, do I have room in my closet if he moves in with me? Like you already start to build up this thing. And you don't want
Yeah,
to admit that you're doing it when you're 60 years old, but you still do the same thing you're doing when you're 13. You're already thinking about a life together with this person. And
yeah,
I would just caution any woman of any age to try to make sure that she's dating multiple people until it's a serious monogamous relationship. Even having the Instagram boys on the side hitting me up, I would get some energy from that, some feedback
sure.
from that, and it would help me not get too focused on any one guy. So if I went out with one guy, um, then instead of waiting for him to hit me up the next day and say, I had a nice time and I want to see you again, I was getting another guy on Instagram telling me, how much he wanted to meet me and, whatever. So I would have a couple of those, right? And then maybe I'm meeting someone on an app and I would just make sure that I wouldn't get too hung up on one. And as long as I had 3, 4, 5, 10 guys that I'm chatting with, online and in real life, then I'm not getting too hyper focused on any one and trying to build that out and giving that energy of like, "Ooh, I want you. I need you. I'm waiting,
Yeah.
to talk to me again. Where are you? Why haven't you texted me back?" And getting all dramatic about it. As long
There
as I,
there's some really good, strategy in that. I love what you're talking about. This is what I call dating research, where you are exploring and you're meeting multiple people and you're building your confidence along the way because every single person you meet, you're learning about yourself. You're learning about what you like, what you don't like. And I also just want to throw in a cautionary tale as well, because it could get very overwhelming when you're meeting so many people. And I always say before you start to jump in to meeting people, just in general, it's really good to take a beat like you did those 5 years. It's like to take a beat and really come home to what matters most to you, to get so crystal clear about who you are now and what life are you building now and your future, so that when you start to meet people that you'll know right off the bat if they're a fit or they're not. Because if you don't do that preparing, I'm like the readiness queen. It's like if you're not fully ready to go back out there, you could be meeting a lot of people and it could be very confusing. And frankly, for me, it was like trying to track everybody and keeping notes. It was like drives me nuts. And, there are strategies. Look, there are definitely strategies so that you're not wasting time. You're not going on a zillion dates, but you're going on the dates that could potentially move you forward. Would you agree with that? Do you have a
Yeah,
comment around that?
I do. I have a few comments about that. And I did take notes, and I do think it is important to take notes, because I had a friend ask me, like, "How can I possibly date more than one person? How am I gonna keep track of which one has kids and which one?" I'm like, "Well, you just write it down." I keep a note in my phone, when I've met someone, this is his name and this is, maybe where he lives, the pertinent information. Did I like him? Did I enjoy our time together? Was there some weird thing about him that sticks out so that I don't say yes the next time he asks me out? Whatever. Like, I'll make little notes, just little
Yeah.
paragraphs. So that is one thing you can do. I also think it's really important to limit your time on the apps. It gets really depressing if you're on the app for like on any of these apps for, 2 hours or something. Like, set a timer and limit how much time you're gonna spend on an app or on online sort of dating. Whether, I mean, I dated men from Instagram, but how much time are you gonna spend texting back and forth with people? I try to get on a FaceTime right away. I wanna
Good.
know,
Yeah.
so almost immediately, and I say that in my profile, like, immediately I wanna vet you by chatting with you in person, not in person, but
Nice.
in a
Yeah.
video. So I see you, you see me. Do I look like the pictures? Do you look like your pictures? Do we have a good conversational style? I don't wanna sit there and have chatting for a week, no, I'm never gonna do that. I'm gonna spend 3 minutes doing that, and then we're going to a video call, and if that can't happen, then it's probably nothing's gonna happen. So that's something important. But I think you touched on something about how to get your confidence. Um,
Yeah, yeah, we had talked about that before, and I think there are strategies for sure to really build confidence, and different things that we can do. Sometimes we get the confidence from dating. Confidence comes from doing something and realizing you can do it well. So it's not something like I could just drink a confidence drink and go, okay, I'm good. There's some inner work for sure. That's what I
yeah,
help my clients with. But there's something to be said about every time you go out there and you nail it, you get more confidence in
yeah.
being able to connect with people. What might you offer to our listeners and watchers around weekly exercises or different mindset shifts that can really help them in this area?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think it's really good to get the external validation from, from the dating, from Instagram, from your DMs and all of that. It's beautiful to go out and date and have someone, buy you a coffee and look you in the eye and tell you how attractive you are, that kind of thing. Um, that's great. And then it's also important to work on the inner stuff, right? And one of the things I do every day is I gratitude journal, and just being grateful for things, being grateful for the men I meet, being grateful for having 2 arms and 2 legs that work and function and waking up every day in the blue skies and all of that. Like, I make at least 1 page of gratitude
Mm,
every single day. And I
nice.
also think a fun exercise can be your life list. Like, who are you? What have you done? What have you accomplished? What have you experienced? What have you been through? You know, had a baby, been through a divorce, got married, visited, Taj Mahal, like whatever, like just listing out all of your experiences. It's amazing when you get down to like 200 things. You're like, wow, look. look who I am. I'm this amazing person who has had all these amazing experiences, brings all this to the table. So I think that really helps too. That's just a couple of the little hacks.
Amazing. Yeah, and you have more hacks. You have a
Yes.
special gift. Let us know about this awesome hacks gift that I know these women and some great men will definitely want to know.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So I have my midlife bombshell. That's midlifebombshell.com. And in there, you put your email and you get 10 midlife bombshell hacks. So these are like instant gratification, how to look better within a day or two, like little beauty tricks that I've learned along the way from figure competitions and life. So it's just like some little fun hacks that you can do to level up your appearance. It's very on a superficial level. This doesn't get into the deep, the deep work and the soul searching stuff. This is just some really fun instant gratification beauty hacks.
I think it's important. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm all about the deep shit. There's no doubt about it. I am all about do the deep work, know who you are, empty out the past, love who you are no matter what. And with that said, I got makeup on right now. And when I go out in the world, and not always because I'm very comfortable without makeup, but I have my hacks that sometimes I just want to do to feel good about where I'm at. It's not that I need it, but I desire it. And if I were dating again, I would be putting on makeup if I was going on a date. It's just what I would do. It doesn't mean you have to, but as women, we have been conditioned and it's not a bad thing to want to look our best, and our best could be au naturel. Whatever feels right to you. And at the end of the day, a lot of us can use those hacks. So I'll put the link in the show notes, and you guys can grab it. Any last words about a woman who's feeling like her best years are behind her before we close for today?
I'm having the most fun and the most variety in my romantic life right now than I ever could have imagined. And who would have thought it was going to be in my 60s? I would have thought that would have been in my 20s or my 30s. Honestly, I just want to tell people there is hope. There is absolute abundance out there, and you can find it, you can live it. It's totally possible. So good luck to you. I love you. And I hope to hear from you. I hope to meet up with you and talk to you each.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks for being here, hon. This is a great inspirational message. I'm sure many women needed to hear it. And that is our episode for today. You know the drill. If you got value, please like it. Please share it with some sisters, and stay tuned for more episodes that are coming. Mwah. One more thing before you go. Have you taken my Discover Your Love Avatar quiz? It's a 2-minute quiz that can help you not only know your strengths, your superpower because you have one, also identify some of your blind spots, some of the things that might be having you in your fear, having you behaving in ways that aren't in alignment with your highest self, the way you want to be when it comes to dating and relationships. And it'll also help you discover why maybe the stars haven't lined up for you yet. Bottom line is, you take this 2-minute quiz, you get a full report in your email with details on how to move forward in next level love, whether you want a partner or not. So you can go to midlifeloveoutloud.com/love quiz. The link is in the show notes as well. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the station, I'm going to encourage you to do that too, so you don't miss any episodes. And I hope you got a ton out of today's. See you next week. Mwah.